morning. Sawubona.
Okay, good morning.
And what do you have to say when I say sawubona? What does that mean, sawubona? Egon,
Sorry.
you said I know what it means.
No, I'm sure.
Oh, that's it. You see, communication, dialogue is not that easy. Sawubona means, Yasmin, I see you. This is the equivalent of the American hi. But those South Africans, they say sawubona. I see you. And since I see you, you come into my life. And I come in yours. Sawubona is said, and the other guy or girl says, Sikona. I'm here. So we meet each other. And I'm very thrilled today that we can meet each other in the presence of my third spiritual father, Sawubona, Sikona. In Indian, Charlie, in Indian, they would say Namaste, or something like that. The God in me sees the God in you. We see each other. Through each other we come to life. And that's the meaning of Sawubona. That's the meaning of I see you. I value you. I respect you. I learn from you. Even from the youngest, which is native. So, let's start the dialogue today. Let's dialogue and learn from each other. So be open. Be free. Because Sawubona means I free you. Not that we are oppressed by cultures or something, but sometimes we are oppressed by our own vicious circle. So happy to see all of you. And as you know, I have a couple of lives. From my first father, nobody is here. Because I was then engineer in a sulfuric acid plant, and due to an accident, I became safety guy. So this is my second father, the first spiritual one. And that's, you see, he's a safety guy. And as you know, isn't it, Jan, as a safety guy, you have to have something here in the middle. Hey, Charles, you see it. This was in Loganville. This was an ISRS scheme, International Safety Rating Scheme. I was a safety guy due to one split second, an accident. And due to that accident, I became awake. I became aware. And I searched for help. And I found this guy. And I found who? Charles was one of the first. That's from my second life, isn't it? And who's next from my second life? John is from my second life. And Chris is from my second life. Who is else from my second life? You. How many years do we know each other?
30 almost?
30 almost, you see? 30 almost, I started my career as a consultant. And one of my first clients was Tepak, now Visco Tepak.
Yeah, right.
And he was the second of the man in, or the two man even.
Yeah, right.
Two men in command, he was the smallest one. I didn't recognize him when he entered. He's become a big fellow. So those are the people from my, let's say, second life. But due to circumstances as DNV, who bought the business of Charlie, Frank, I was in distress in '92, and I was searching for rescue. And I went to America, and I met a brilliant consultant, a certain Mr. Connor. He's still in town. 3 days was not costly. I was bound to have 3 days course of this guy, but they didn't let me in. DNV said out. Since I was safety guy, I had foreseen the accident. And the same 3 days there was another training, another thing going on in Atlanta. And that was ODR, Did you ever hear of ODR? Organizational Development Research. And they were talking about management of change. With the R of Richard, or the R of Roels, registered. Management of change. And he was a glamorous boy, Mr. Connor. But I wanted to spread his thinking about management of change. And he said, yeah, but then you have to pass an exam of level 2. I said, what the hell is level 2? Oh, that's a course of $20,000. 5 days course in Atlanta. I started the dialogue, and finally I ended with $12,000 plus a voyage, plus being there 1 week in Atlanta. And to sell that to Rita, our Rita, that was not easy. But finally I went to America to see the great, great guru for 1 solid week, management of change. And who stumbled in the room? In that Swiss hotel, I think. Was it Swiss hotel, Charlie? And Charlie was stumbling in the room because in the weekend before, it was on Monday, you know, that starts, he had fell from his mountain. He was living in Stone Mountain. And he was running up, running down the hill, sometimes thrice a day. Years after, he became my 3rd father. That week changed my whole life. He was talking about management of change, but with a profoundness I've never heard by Mr. Connor. He was even talking about Adam and Eve, and of the first change of the Garden of Eden. He could link everything to everything. One of his tricks was the course of Mr. Connor, page number such and number such, give me the connections. And it went well, and it went to a whole week. Years after, you see there, here, you see that? Atlanta. You remember Atlanta? Olympic Games? In that year, they didn't know each other. Can you imagine? They lived at 12 miles from each other, but I was still friends with Frank. The NV kicked me out. But the friendship and the respect towards Frank remained. And that picture has been taken by your grandmother, who is now joining you. You see, Johan, is he happy that day that finally those 2 people met? And that's my quote. If I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. 2 giants. So sadly, the first giant has passed away, but I'm very thrilled to be able to have that day with my 3rd father. So in the next years, I've been mixing safety with creative interchange. In the beginning, he was nicknamed Dr. Synergy. In America, he's known as Dr. Synergy, because even he did not dare to speak about creative interchange in the years I met him. That was not done. In business, you didn't talk about love or creative interchange. You talked about synergy. And who I met then, one of the first was I've written a book, Creatieve wisselwerking. Who remembers that my 3rd book, Creatieve wisselwerking? And I met him in Kortrijk. You remember?
I got it here.
I got it. You have got everything from me. You never paid for it until today. So that's Ronnie. And I met you too, I think, Karim. I met you. And I met Brian because he was married with the daughter of my sister, so that was another story. We rekindled through Twitter, because suddenly I understood that he was looking for creative interchange. I am introducing him to Charlie. So that's Bram. You were there too, in the beginning of during the writing of my 4th book, I started these sessions, and that's session number 14. And you came from high north of Holland to see that silly Belgian engineer. That's my nickname in America. CB, silly Belgian engineer. Because I'm an engineer and I'm talking about love, creative interchange, dialogue, crucial dialogue, etc. This is a real guy. Willem I know Willem because I did sometimes things for free. You can imagine a consultant doing things for free. That was a whole week with youngsters of 18, 17, 18 years. And he was one of the speakers for last year economics of the school of Eeklo. And Rita's nephew was asked me, and he asked you. And so we met each other. He was doing, he's a of management of change, but project management and IT, etc. He's very good in that.
Thank you.
Yeah, he even started with Colruyt and in the early days, isn't it? And not in Colruyt, but in the IT part of it. When we had to do with those cards, you remember that at Colruyt?
The wild cards.
No, they were. But now he's there because he did follow me afterwards. And afterwards I went with creative entities to a lot of places, you know. And luckily, after being ill, I had 2 illnesses. Some of you know the second one of the cancer, but the first one was a deep depression. But I still, somehow, I recovered. And the first time when I recovered from depression, I said, you had the answer, Johan, and you didn't live your own book, my third book, Creative Wisselwerk. Then I wrote my fourth one, Cruciale Dialogs. And then the doctor said to me, you have cancer. I said, hey, let's use my book and go in a crucial dialogue with my cancer. And I came back. I remember here saying in September, I will be off for 1 year. And I promise you I'll be back. And in 1 year after, we restarted those sessions. Then you have an old friend of mine came back and he said, Johan, can you help me? I'm BP guy, your boss, ex-boss, who you wanted to see today. But he could not come because he's in Munich, isn't it, Veronique? Veronique is from there and Cecile is from there. So I'm speaking about Francis, and Francis asked me to help him to change the culture, the safety culture. And finally we found and we understood that if you want to change the culture, safety culture, you have to change the culture. And what is it? You have to become a creative interchange culture. And I'm very happy that those 2 ladies have been able to come and to see my third father. You too, you came perhaps by Ronnie. Adon has come in, perhaps that Ronnie has said something, Johan, you have to go there, but I'm nothing, you know. So be prepared for the real stuff. Now the oldest could not come, that was Francis van Oorschot from Antwerp Tax, 86. And he sent you his love, because he's now with the whole family. Oh, 76. Well, sometimes I make him sick. 76. Luckily that I have 2 Charlies in my life, this one and this one. And this one corrects me every time. And Charlie's, he corrects me. I'm happy to introduce to you his grandson, because they are making a trip now. And I said, so if you want to go with your father, with your mother and grandmother to Ghent, or do you want to see beautiful people? And he chose for being here. That's Nathan Riedel. He's a dancer. He's a music lover. He's a teacher. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being. Sawubona. Namaste. Sikona. Let's start the dialogue. And from now, I'll be the timekeeper. And Charlie, the floor is yours, but don't take it to Franklin, Tennessee.
Don't take it with me.